As we get older, it can be harder to force ourselves to do things. I was talking to a friend yesterday about working out and how their motivation has gone way down for doing so. And I thought a lot about how that works and how our motivation can change as we get older. If we've overdone one method, like forced ourselves to do things and maybe just really pushed, that really does have a difference. Oftentimes, Carl Jung talked about this part of us as we grow up. We learn what works for us and what gets us positive affirmation or reinforcement. And that part of us we put forward and we really put our identity into that. However, there's other aspects maybe that are shamed or pushed away or that we don't want to acknowledge that become a part of our shadow. It's sort of like a beach ball that you hold down and you don't want it to be a part of what you're doing because it's been painful in some way. But when something's put into shadow, Jung talked about it being placed in a backpack. What happens is it wants to be expressed because our whole life is about that unique fullness of our being that wants to be expressed. And when some part isn't expressed, it almost gets like an unruly child where it wants to blurt out, it wants to be expressed, it wants to be heard, it wants to be seen, it wants to be known. And that part of us that we've put in a backpack or pushed down or pushed away often will come up and drive the proverbial bus of our lives when we least want it to. So that's something that can really be impactful to us, is that aspect of us that's been suppressed or pushed down is oftentimes digs in its heels and says, I'm not going to be forced to do anything anymore until you listen to me. And as we get older into our 40s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, I'd say more so 40s and 50s, we cannot force ourselves to do things the way we once could because those parts of us have just sick of us using that same method of pushing them away and trying to live out of this part of ourselves, different parts of ourselves that are familiar, but not necessarily full. And so the fullness of us wants to be expressed, and that's why it's hard to be motivated sometimes. Ways that we've been motivated in the past are not necessarily motivating to us going forward. So what do? Well, part of it is just to pay attention, almost like an inner dialogue, as I spoke of before. It's a way to find out what does that neglected part of us really want, because truthfully, we've probably not listened to it. We've spent too much time pushing it away and not wanting to deal with this aspect of ourselves that we don't know it very well. It's like an unknown part of us. And so just taking time to listen or journal or almost like try to connect with that aspect of ourselves. So for the example of working out, maybe there's a part of us that just wants to enjoy life and not be so disciplined all the time. And so when we decide to actually listen and not push that part to do all these things that we've pushed it to do previous, it can feel like we're moving backwards. And also, let's say that we're really good at something, like, we're really in shape before. And so now to listen is to do less, which feels like it doesn't register as progress. So we go, really? I'm going to work out for 10 minutes and take a walk? What does that seem like? That's how I felt. I used to jog long distances, but now I'm going to walk for 10 minutes? I mean, come on. But in walking for 10 minutes, it almost like was a way for me to connect in a different way with a different aspect of me. So that part of me got on board for wanting to do the simple, easy things, which then led me to be able to do more later, but also to acknowledge that aspect of myself, because that's really what that part wants, is just to be acknowledged and listened to and to be considered in the life that we're creating. And truly to have that unique fullness in our life, that part of us has to be considered, and it has to have the opportunity to grow up, because it's really a part of us that's immature and hasn't had the light of day to be able to grow. And so it's been pushed away, and it stays stuck in that time frame of whenever that happened when we started to push it away. So that's a pretty big deal.